honor of St. Patrick's Day, we want to turn this beer green. And to do that, we're going to make some selections. We're going to use a couple different selection tools and then do a color adjustment. So to protect my image, I'm going to right click on the original image, choose duplicate layer. Okay, so I'm going to take the rectangular marquee tool and I want to select the glass and kind of the fingers around it. I want to go down to the bottom of the glass, about there, and I'm going to isolate this to its own layer. So I'm going to go New, Layer via Copy. I find it easier to not have the distractions of the image around me, so I'm going to hide those in the Layer panel with hitting the little eyeball to the left, and now I'm focused on just the glass. To make this easier, I'm also going to zoom in. So what I'm going to do is select the beer inside the glass. And I'm going to do that with a couple different tools. There's a curvature down here at the glass that I want to basically be able to select, and a very slight curvature at the top, and then we have straight edges of the glass. So I'm going to start with the elliptical marquee tool. And on the inside of the glass, I'm going to draw a ellipse that pretty much matches the curvature of the glass at the bottom. Now I'm a little above it, so I'm going to use the cursor arrows, the down arrow on the keyboard, just to move it in place. I'm going to add another ellipse up here at the top. It's just a very slight curvature between the liquid of the beer and the foam of the beer. I'm going to make sure I'm adding to my selection on the options bar. I'm going to start at the very edge and where the foam meets the liquid. And we're going to draw a very slight ellipse. If we get a little bit into the foam, that's okay, because that's probably going to be colored a little bit anyway. I want to be careful here because if I make it down and try to nudge it up with my arrow keys, I'm going to nudge the one at the bottom as well. So just a very slight ellipse. Now I want to get the rest of the glass with the beer in it and have straight edges, but they're probably not perfectly rectangular. The glass is probably tapered slightly. So the best tool here is going to be the polygon lasso tool. Now I'm just going to come over here and click at the widest point of my ellipse at the top, drag down to the widest point at the bottom, come over to the left hand side, click, back up to the top, I'm going to come out just a little bit because I see there's a bright yellow here at the top that I want to make sure I'm going to color that. And then once I've gotten that point, I can actually just double click and it'll connect those points. Now there's one thing I'm noticing in the selection here is this finger comes a little bit into the glass, overlapping. I'm going to take the ellipse tool again. This time I want to subtract. I'm just going to subtract that area out just slightly. Get a little bulge there in the glass. Maybe just a little bit on this finger as well. I think the others are okay. So now we want to change the color of our beer and make it green. I'm going to go to the image menu, adjustments, hue and saturation. We could do this with color balance. We could also do it with levels and curves. I think hue and saturation is the easiest to use. We've seen we can colorize, and we could click that checkbox and colorize it. In this case though, I think all we really need to do is change the hue. We'll make it a nice, fairly bold green, but I want to make it a little bit darker green, so I'm going to lighten this down. Still maintaining the transparency of the liquid so I can see the palm behind. I think it looks okay. I'm going to do Control H to hide the marching ants, and we now have a green beer. Now here's the problem though. Notice we've got a reflection of the beer in the palm, of the light going through the yellow liquid and creating a little yellow tint on the fingers near the beer. We need to make that a little more of a green tint. So I still have my marching ants let's take that and make it its own layer. Layer, new. Actually, this one I'm going to do via cut. So I'm going to turn that layer off, and we'll see we cut that out, and we see now the areas here of our fingers that are yellow. So here I'm going to use the lasso tool. Just going to take the lasso tool, just going to basically carefully lasso around those areas. I'm going to come into the transparent, because that's not going to matter, and just come back and just get those areas I want to change. Now, remember, we can add to our selections, subtract to our selections. So to be perfect the first time around, let's adjust this. So I missed part of this over here. I'm going to come in and add to my selection, and maybe just a little bit there. And I might need to just subtract just slightly. Now again, you can zoom in more if you want. I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the select menu, and let's just modify and feather this a little bit, which will soften it. Probably 3 pixels is pretty good. You can show your green layer, but make sure you stay on that layer where we've made our selection on. Now let's go to the image menu, choose adjustments, and this time I'll do color balance. So for the midtones, I'm going to bring the green up a little bit. Let's bring the cyan down and the blue up. That'll get rid of some of that yellow. Do the same thing for the highlights. And you can start to see the fingers turning a little more green from the light passing through that liquid and reflecting. Bring it down just a little bit. You can play around with those numbers, get the settings you think look best. I'm going to click OK. I'm pretty pleased with that. Now let's turn our whole image back on. I'm going to zoom back out. That looks very good at this point. I need to, though, reflect the beer at the bottom. I'm going to take those 2 layers that we just modified. Let's merge those back together. So I'm going to go to the layer menu and choose merge layers. I've selected both layers. Let me undo and show that again. So I'm going to select those 2 layers using shift click. Those are both highlighted. I'm going to go to the layer menu and choose merge layers. Now those are back to 1 layer. And now I'm going to take those 2 layers, take that merge layer and duplicate it. Just dragging down a little plus sign. I'm going to deselect everything by doing Control D, so nothing is selected. Now if I go to the Edit menu and choose Transform, Flip Vertical, it'll turn that glass upside down. Exactly what we want. I'm going to move that glass down into place. And now I'm going to go to the Filter menu and choose Blur, Gaussian Blur. And we're going to blur that, well, let's go to about 6. I'm also going to go to, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go back to the Edit, Transform. I'm going to choose Scale. I'm going to grab the top handle, hold down the Shift key, just going to drag it down a little bit and then move the whole thing back up. So I'm shortening that reflection and press the Enter key. And there we have our green beer for St. Patrick's Day. Go to the File menu, choose Save As. I'm going to save my image as O3D green beer. And then finally I'm going to go to the File menu. We're going to flatten this, save a copy. I'll make it a JPEG. And it'll simply be green beer. I'm going to get the word copy out of here. Greenbeer.jpg. And for the quality, I'll leave it at 8. Click OK. So there's the image. I might use that in a flyer of some sort, maybe for a bar on St. Patrick's Day. If you'd like to see more videos in the Photoshop Practicum playlist, click the title at the bottom. If you'd like to be alerted to new videos, please click my photo in the top right to subscribe to the channel.